We are live. Welcome, y'all. Howdy, howdy. Happy 6 o'clock. There we are. Okay. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome, welcome. All you beautiful, shining people. And there we got some people coming in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All you beautiful, shiny people, as my buddy Sandy says. Breath with Sandy on YouTube. Check him out. He's the real deal. He's awesome. Today we are going to do a guided practice, guided IFS practice. So, why did we not pin that? So, this is going to be a practice. I'm going to be guiding you guys through using the 6 F's of inviting a part to speak. We'll start right at 6:10. So this will be probably about at least 15, 20 minutes or so. I would really encourage you to get a journal if you have it. I find journaling to be super helpful, but you can also kind of just do this straight up as a guided practice, just sitting, just doing it like a meditation. I go back and forth and do both. I am sharing this stuff here because these are parts of the resources that I am using to build for our 5-day resilience challenge. So it's really easy to get snapped back into old roles when we're around families and even just when we're around the stress of the holidays. And so the 5-day resilience challenge is about helping you to recognize your role and step out of it, to be mindful. Part of this challenge is understanding your internal family system. So we all know that we grow up in a family system. Well, we grow up in a family, and that family operates as a system. But we also operate as an internal family system. We internalize different roles and different jobs. There are many different parts of us. So in IFS believes that there's 3 different parts of us. Protective parts of us, those are the managers and they keep anxiety away. Exiled parts of us, these are usually young, vulnerable, hurt parts that get pushed away by the managers to try to keep consciousness clear. And then firefighters. And firefighters are the types of parts of us that come out and rush in when we're feeling anxious or overwhelmed. These are the parts of us that binge, that drink, that have really strong dissociative qualities. And so what's cool about IFS is they give us a really, really clear, really simple practice in order to work with these parts. These voices in your head, they're not just voices that are on a repeat, they're actually parts of us that we can talk to. So when you focus on these parts and you ask them questions, they actually respond. And that's what I'm going to guide you guys through here this evening. We are going to do the 6 steps, which are to find the part, to focus on the part, to flesh it out, to feel towards it, to notice how we're feeling, to check for the qualities of the self, to befriend that part, and then to get to know what that protector is afraid of. Protective parts often manifest in the body. They can kind of get stuck in our head, or oftentimes feelings of anxiety that can they can show up in our chest, sometimes heaviness or weight in our shoulders. This is a really key aspect to IFS, is that the parts of us actually show up and manifest in our body. They're not just in thought. They're actually different subsystems that we can actually interact with. And when you talk to a part, it talks back. But the key in all of this, what I really want to welcome you into, is curiosity. So we'll have one more minute here, and then we'll start with the practice. We're going to start with just a few moments of kind of deep breathing and connection with yourself. This is a practice that is good to sit down. I would really encourage you to sit down, put your phone down, like actually don't look at your phone. Just put your phone down and listen. Or like I said, if you wanted to grab a journal, this is a great practice to journal with. And if you want to join me for the journaling challenge this week, this practice is something that is actually part of the practice every day in the challenge, in the resilience challenge. And we're using this to learn how to journal to experience our internal world with more connection. So here we are at 6:10 here, and we're going to get started. So I just want to invite you to find connection. Find presence. We can begin by just gently closing our eyes and just beginning with a few soft breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Gently in through the nose and out through the mouth. Just allowing yourself to arrive here. Something that's really important in this whole practice that we're going to do is curiosity. And so I want to invite you to be curious about your internal experience. Curious about what's happening. And we're inviting ourselves to simply be present. So the first step here in working with a part, especially in working with these protector parts, is to find the part. And we do that by simply asking, who needs my attention right now? And what's key in this practice when we are working with these parts is we're asking these questions, we're just kind of floating them out there, just like we were fishing. So you have a bobber and you're fishing and you want to cast the question out. We ask this question, who needs my attention right now? And then we just let the question sit. So this is called meditative inquiry. We actually ask the question and we let go of the agenda to find an answer. So just like fishing, we ask this question, who needs my attention right now? You might notice a sensation in the body, maybe a feeling of tightness in your chest, maybe a part of you that's hanging out in your head, maybe tension in your shoulders. Simply ask, who needs my attention right now? And what's important is just like fishing, we're casting this question out. Just like fishing, we're not going to dive into the water and search for the answer to the question. That would just scare the fish away. And just so when we ask these questions of these steps of finding this part, asking who needs my attention, we're just floating the question out there and letting it sit. So as I ask that question, I can kind of feel a tightness in my throat right here. And so the second step here is first we're finding these protective parts, and then we're focusing. So we just gently focus our attention with a sense of mindfulness, with a sense of gentle awareness on the experience in the throat. We're shining the light of awareness onto wherever this part of you is showing up. It may be in your belly, it may be in the front of your head, it may be somewhere else. For me, it's in my throat. But you just notice where this part's showing up for you. And so we've identified the part, we're focusing on the part, and now we want to flesh the part out. And that means we bring a sense of curiosity to the sensation and notice how it's showing up. So I can feel this ball in my throat kind of tightening. It feels almost like a heaviness, like a weight, like a constriction. And I'm just gently turning towards that. As I do that as well, I can notice my eyes are getting a little tearful. It feels like a heaviness, a sense of tightness and pressure. And so we find the part, we focus on the part, we flesh the part out. Here's where you can notice too, are there any images that are emerging as you focus on this part of you, as you focus on this protective part of you, this voice? Are there any images that are emerging? Are there any thoughts that keep showing up? If one of the questions I like to ask in this fleshing it out part is, if this feeling in your body, for me it's the feeling in your throat, probably be somewhere else different for you, if this feeling just became words, if it just all of a sudden manifested in words, what would those words be? And so here we found the part, we focused on the part, we fleshed the part out, noticing how it shows up, what images, sensations, sounds. And now we want to notice how we feel towards the part. Is this part okay here? Or do we want it to go away? Notice your attitudes towards this part. Notice if you feel frustrated with it, if you feel irritated, if you're trying to push this experience away, if you want to get this feeling to go away. I can feel that a little bit. And that indicates to me that there's another part of you, a part of me that's frustrated with this feeling of tension in my throat. And so here what we do is now we check in for what's called the energy of the self. We notice, can I cultivate a sense of curiosity? Can I cultivate a sense of calmness? Can I cultivate a sense of compassion, of connection, of clarity? And if we can't, if we feel stuck, if we feel like we have an agenda, if we feel like there's this other part of us that's trying to push that initial part away, that's totally okay. We simply switch to this target part and focus on the new target part. Now, if this part's showing up and it's being resistant, we can actually ask that part if it would be willing to step back, this second part that's interfering, this second part that's frustrated with the first part. We could actually ask that part to step back. And if that part's not willing to step back, we just change our focus. So either we've asked this part to step back and it's willing to step back, this second part, or we've changed our focus to this part. And now again, we want to check for self-energy. We want to check for compassion, curiosity, calmness. And here we want to approach this part, this protective part of us, and befriend it. This is the next step, is to befriend this part. These protective parts are oftentimes so familiar, these feelings are so familiar. One of the phrases that I like to use to help me kind of feel this care is, oh, I know you. I know you anxiety. I know you fear. I know you perfectionism. These are our protectors. And so we're actually trying to get to know these protectors from a sense of connection. And so we can ask this protector part here, what do you want me to know? And again, when we ask these questions, that's right, Anastasia, I know you, sadness, that's right. When we ask these questions, what do you want me to know? It's just like we're fishing. So we cast out the line into the pond. What do you want me to know? We cast it out. And then we let go of the agenda to answer it. We simply rest back. We simply wait. And so as I ask this protective part of me, what do you want me to know this part of me is saying? And I can just sense it. It's just a sense. It's saying, you're wasting time. You have to get to work. There's some things that you need to take care of. So I can just hear that part. I don't have to correct it. I don't have to challenge it. I'm just noticing, okay? You're scared that I'm wasting time. And now as I do that, as I connect with this part, I didn't have any kind of visual, but all of a sudden I can see this part of me, and this part of me is kind of like curled up and like chewing its fingers. It's feeling really antsy. So here, as you're connecting with this part, notice if there's a shift in how it's feeling. I can also feel that my throat is softening a little bit. It's a little bit less tense. We can ask this quiet question. We ask this part, what's your job? How are you trying to protect me? And again, we just cast these questions out, this kind of meditative inquiry. We float these questions out there. We let go of the agenda to answer them. If you feel an agenda or if you feel a pressure to answer the questions, it's probably an indication that there's another part of you. And this other part of you just becomes our new focus. So we just ask, how did you get this job? Can you show me how you got this job? What's the story there? And just notice what memories come up. Notice what comes to mind. And we can ask this part, do you like this job? What are some of the parts of this job that you don't like? And we can ask too, if you didn't have to do this job anymore, what would you rather do? You can ask this part, what are your natural gifts and qualities? If you didn't have to protect me in this way, what would you do instead? And I can just sense in this part right now, right? As I said that, this part's just saying like, have a lot of fun. You see these parts of us, they get stuck in jobs that they were never made for because they're trying to protect us. And so here I can see that this part of me that's very anxious about getting things done, this part of me would much rather have fun. But it's afraid that if it doesn't do this job, I won't get anything done. And so I can just appreciate this part for taking care of me in this way. And I can ask this part, what are you afraid would happen if you didn't do your job? And that's the last step here. We focus on the part and we simply ask, what are you afraid would happen if you didn't do this job? So wherever you're feeling anxiousness in your body, wherever you're feeling tension, just ask, what are you afraid would happen if you didn't do your job? And this oftentimes points us to painful experiences that we've had, moments where we've been hurt. It can point and direct us to stuck points in our life. And the key here in all of this is compassion and curiosity. Another question that I really like to ask here, that I usually ask a little bit earlier on, is just focus on this sensation and ask, how old are you? Oftentimes you might be surprised by the answer. It might say something that's surprising to other parts of you, but ask that question of how old are you and just notice the first answer that comes to mind. For me, there's this part of me that feels like it's 5 or 6. Now there's other parts of me that be like, that doesn't make sense. That's okay. They can step back. And just recognize that this part's very young, and oftentimes our parts are very, very young, because when we were young, we were hurt and we learned to adapt. These parts learn to adapt. Now as you're looking at this part, you've asked this part how old it is. I want to invite you to just let this part know how old you are. I'm 30 years old. And oftentimes when we notice these young parts, and we actually look at them and we tell them like, oh, I'm an adult, they can be really amazed, very surprised, because they don't expect that. Because these young protector parts see us as young and vulnerable. Because these parts of us get stuck at early developmental ages. And it's through this practice that we're developing self-leadership. Self-leadership does not come from silencing the voices within us. It comes from approaching the voices within us with curiosity. And so that's all we're doing here. We're just approaching with curiosity. And then here in this last step, I just like to focus on appreciation. We want to just thank this part for how it's protecting us. Thank this protective part of us for trying to take care of us. These parts of us get forced into narrow roles which are burdens and restrict their connection to our natural resourceful qualities. But these are roles that we had to take on to survive. So we're just thanking these parts of us for all that they've done to take care of us. And we're also letting them know like, hey, we want to shift things around a little bit. We're not making any sudden movements. We're just letting these parts know we like to continue to have these conversations, to get to know their jobs, to get to know how they're stuck, and gradually to build trust with them so we can actually rearrange the internal system so it's not so much parts-led, but it's actually self-led. So one thing that's helpful here, and the final question that I like to ask when I'm doing this work is there anything else you want me to know? Yeah, this part of me kind of says, if you take care of things, I won't bring anxiety. This part kind of says, listen, I only have to show up with anxiety when you put off the important things. So these parts really can tell us marvelous answers, which really are the answers that we're looking for. So we just thank these parts here in this final step. Let them know that we want to do this more often. And so that wraps up our work here. It's the 6 F's of inviting a part to speak. We find the part, we focus on the part, we flesh the part out, getting to know how it's showing up. We notice how we're feeling towards the part, any reactivity that we have. We learn to befriend the part, approaching this part, even the anxious, stressed, protective parts, like we care about them, like they're helping us, because they are. And then we explore what the parts are afraid would happen if they stopped doing their job. This is really just the first step. I want to be clear about this. This isn't the end. This is a tool along the way, but it's a really, really helpful tool to get to know your inner world. And so this is one of the tools that we'll be using in the Holiday Resilience Challenge, the 5-day journaling challenge. We do this on day 2 and then do it on each day. You can use this as journaling prompts. So I want to welcome you all to send me a message after this, to DM me the word challenge, and I'll send you a link to the challenge. We're starting tomorrow. I'm really excited about it. I would love to see you there. But I want to welcome any questions here, any questions about IFS, any questions about working with your parts, and I would really love to hear if you could share here your reflections. Having done this exercise, I would really love to see and hear it. Any questions you have, what you noticed, the parts of you inside, maybe what these parts are afraid of, what their protective function is. Be really, really nice to hear. So let me know any questions you have about IFS, about the challenge, Holiday Resilience Challenge. We're running it tomorrow. Send me a message. Also, I have a 6-step guide to do this. So if you're interested in the step-by-step journaling guide, like I said, I like to do this journaling. It's one of my favorite ways to approach it. And I shared that here, so if you want that, I'll send you a message. It was really eye-opening. I got overwhelmed, but felt loved at the end. Yeah, and that's something too, I think you'll find that as you practice it, so what can happen is We connect with one part, and then in connecting with that one part, sometimes other parts can get scared. So one of the really important things when doing these 6 steps is we're not in a hurry, we're not in a rush, we take time. And I think you'll find that the more often you practice this, the more often you will kind of feel more comfortable doing it, and your parts will become more comfortable with it. You won't feel so overwhelmed. IFS is one of the most effective therapy approaches that you've stumbled upon. You can't understand how it's not more popular already. Yeah, IFS is really exploding right now. It's kind of fun. And I think you will see it becoming way, way more popular. Part of it is that it's just a really young approach. I think Richard Schwartz started in 2006 maybe, so it's a relatively young approach in terms of the world of psychotherapy. You'd like to know more about the Resilience Challenge and what the ultimate goal is. So the goal of the Holiday Resilience Challenge is to help you to not get swept away in your family system over the holidays. It's really easy to be around people and just fall into reactivity. Reactivity is the gasoline that lights the fire of familial dysfunction and of personal dysfunction. Reactivity is internalized then by the individuals in the family, and then it follows with us. So the goal of the Holiday Resilience Challenge is to help you to become more aware of what your role is in your family and to learn how that role is still showing up in your everyday life, and then to help you have a plan. So it's to help you step back from the role that you've inherited by understanding what's the external family system that I've developed in, how has that affected my internal family system, how is it keeping me stuck, and how can I break that cycle through non-reactivity of stepping back. So at the end of the challenge, each day, there's videos that I will share with you, about 10 to 15 minutes of videos, and then journal prompts to invite you with practices. So videos, practices of mindfulness, practices like this, about 10 minutes. And then there's journal prompts, where I invite you to really explore kind of the theory that we're talking about and putting it into practice. And each day will cover a different topic. And then at the very end, what's really exciting is you'll have a written plan for these are the roles that I can get sucked into. This is the emotional reactivity that happens when I'm around family. These are the ways that I'm still stuck. Here's the conversations that I know I get sucked into. Here's the areas where I become dysregulated. Here are some coping skills. We're going to identify the conversations that you know that you're going to have because that's just the way families are. They're predictable. And learn how to step back and have better responses. So the goal of the Family Resilience Challenge the Holiday Resilience Challenge is to help you to be connected to others without having to cut off from yourself. And likewise, to be connected to yourself without having to cut off from others. That's Murray Bowen's definition of the differentiation of self. And it's a core thing that we'll be helping you to develop in the Holiday Resilience Challenge. You spoke with a protector part who was afraid of you feeling overwhelmed, so it keeps you from starting. That part would rather be creating peaceful, uncluttered spaces. I love that, Hannah. This is one of the real powers of this work, is to realize that, this protective part that we've learned to resent because it stops us from starting, it's actually trying to take care of me. And it doesn't want to be in this situation either, but it's afraid that if it doesn't, something bad will happen. So once we identify this trap, then we can actually shift it, right? And we can realize, what does that part need from me in order to be protected so it can let go of its rigid role? Welcome, Beth. I'm so glad you made it. It's good to see you here. Yeah. I'm so glad that this has helped you towards integration and self-leadership. Awesome. Existential Switch, I'm glad that you're here too. Thank you so much. So yeah, if you enjoyed this challenge, if you enjoyed this practice, DM me the word challenge, and I'll be happy to share you the guide. Like I said, I have a written journal guide, and also I'll share you the link to the challenge. I'm just going to blast that out to everybody. Love guidance for this practice again, Anastasia. Yeah, there's a couple posts that I have today that kind of lay out the guide, but then if you send me a message, I'll send you a link to the guide as well. I spoke with an imposter syndrome part. You told me that it's protecting me from failure. It's making sure that I'm good enough. Yeah, right. These parts, and what a heavy burden for that part to have. Oftentimes, parts can get stuck in rigid roles in kind of two ways. One way is a part that's good at something is having to overperform it. For example, right, a part that's good at analysis is like our ruminative thinking part. So it would like to think, but it doesn't like having to think about everything. One of the other ways that parts can get stuck and burdened is the exact opposite. So a part that wants us to be encouraged becomes the critic, because it's afraid that if in the times that it's been encouraging and we've tried something new, we've been criticized, it feels like it has to shut us down to protect us from that. So oftentimes those are the two ways that we can see a lot of times parts getting burdened is in the same job but to an extreme degree, or an opposite job. Great, y'all. So I'm so glad. If there's any one or two more questions, I'd love to answer them here. But send me the word challenge and I will DM you a link. So thank you all for being here. And I will have this video, I'll have these guided exercises up on my YouTube, so you can check that out to use these guided exercises. So thank you so much for being here. And I hope you take good care. All right, peace. I hope to see you guys on Monday. Hope to see you, Monday's tomorrow, so I hope to see you guys in our Holiday Resilience Challenge here tomorrow. So take good care. Peace.